One parasite that I've continued to write about because it's just so mind-blowing is actually a parasite that is probably inside the brains of about a third of you. It's called toxoplasma. It's a single-celled parasite. It's related to the thing called plasmodiums. You've probably heard about it in terms of why pregnant women shouldn't handle kitty litter. Because in pregnant women, it can be quite harmful to their fetuses. But if we get toxoplasma, healthy adults who are not pregnant, we're fine. And in fact, anywhere from a quarter to a half of people, depending on what country you're talking about, have toxoplasma in them. And this is its life cycle. It lives in cats. That's its final host. And it's got to get into intermediate hosts in order to get back into another cat. Now, a lot of the ways that they get into cats is that they get into a rat, which gets eaten by a cat, and there you go. It can complete its life cycle. So for us, basically, it's a dead end, unless you get devoured by a cat. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but again, it's almost like you look at parasites, we look through your life cycles, and if you just think to yourself, well, how could the parasite make this work out a little better? You can start to guess about what kind of strategies they've evolved, because they've evolved so many fantastic strategies. So, if the toxoplasma is limited, so if it's got a bottleneck of rats getting into cats, well, why not make it easier for the rats to get into cats? And actually, that's what happens. So a rat infected, it seems what happens, a rat infected with toxoplasma looks totally normal, except for one thing. It loses its fear of the smell of cats. So, if a cat has left some urine around, a regular rat will freak out, will get extremely anxious, will hunker down, will stop exploring, will just look around like, there's trouble here. A toxoplasma infected rat is like, what's that? Oh, interesting. They'll actually sometimes even become curious about the smell of a cat, which conceivably makes them an easier target. Now, billions of people have toxoplasma in their brain. And so if they are secreting some Prozac-type drug in the brains of rats, what is it doing to us? I mean, we use rats to study the effects of antidepressants and other drugs because we have some similarities in our biology. So it stands to reason that whatever toxoplasma is doing in rats and other animals, it could be doing to us. And so there's not a lot of research in this area, which I don't understand because it's so weird. So for example, it looks as if people who are infected with toxoplasma are more likely to get into traffic accidents. People who are infected with toxoplasma score differently on personality tests than people who don't have it. So women who have toxoplasma tend to rate more open-hearted. Men who have toxoplasma tend to be more defiant of authority. I have no idea how this gets you inside of a cat, but the effects are there. And some people have actually done studies on sort of national differences in personality, and they can correlate them with levels of toxoplasma. So, we stereotype the French in a certain way. Is that because the French have some of the highest rates of toxoplasma in the world? I don't know. I'm just saying. So, the nice thing about writing a book about parasites not only is that you get to explore this fantastic biology, but the fact is that that people other than scientists really, really want to know what you're talking about. And so it's been really nice to be on the interviewed on the radio a number of times. I don't know if you ever listened to this all-night show called Coast to Coast. It's pretty weird. Lots of UFO conspiracy things. But I was able to go on there and just talk straight biology and I think the audience was even more freaked out than by the UFO conspiracy. I was asked to be on This American Life, and Ira Glass and I talked for quite some time, and he, at one point when I was just like going on and on about, the glories of parasites, and he had to stop. And he said, "Mr. Zimmer, who said Army War?" So another interesting thing that has happened is that novelists have read that book and have said, "Oh my God, I have got to write a book." So I know of at least 2 books that have been directly kind of fueled by Parasite Rex, where people, where humans, of course, become, manipulated by various parasites. And maybe the weirdest aspect of writing a book about parasites is that you can end up with your own parasite. So, a woman named Carrie Filer, she was an undergraduate at the time at the University of Connecticut when she read my book. She'd been thinking about what she wanted to do, and she really was fascinated by parasites, but she didn't think you could seriously study them. No one would take her seriously. And so then she read the book, and then she was like, "That's it. I'm done. I'm going to be a parasitologist." And so she went to graduate school at UConn, and she worked with a scientist there named Janine Kyra, who studies the tapeworms that live inside sharks around the world. Sharks are just seething with tapeworms. Not just sharks, but their relatives, stingrays and dogfish. And so this particular stingray caught off the coast of Australia it's a totally new species. I don't even think it's been formally named yet. It just was dredged up by some fishermen. So Kyra and her colleagues cut it open and found a bunch of tapeworms they'd never seen before, and then it was Carrie's job to describe them. And the thing on the right is one of those species, and so she named it Xanthobothrium zimmeri. So I now get to say that I am the only writer that I know of who had a tapeworm named after. If you know of another, please let me know. Lancet fluke, it has to be a thing. But at first I thought, wow, this is fantastic, what an honor. But then I actually read the paper where she published it, and she actually published it with several, I think 6 other new species. And she named one for her uncle, and she named one for someone who helped her run the microscopes at UConn, and she named one for, I think, her program officer at the National Science Foundation. And I thought, it's actually not such a big deal to have a species named after you. And not because it was. I appreciate the gesture, but there are so many species in general to be named, and actually there's so many tapeworms left to be named. There are probably some estimates are 20,000 to 30,000 species of tapeworm out there, and only a few hundred have actually been named. So it's cool, but it's not the end of the world.